Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Mark A. Mullens. We're going to be discussing his amazing book, The Sound of Animals. Now, it's available for purchase through Amazon, as well as barnesandnoble.com. But people, if you want to gather everything that Mark has in store, well, do yourself a favor and head directly to his personal site. And that's markmullens.godaddysites.com. And I do want to make sure the double M is not two M's side by side, okay? It's the word double M.godaddysites.com. There you'll find more information on Mark. You'll find more information on this fantastic book, The Sound of Animals, but you're also going to be greeted with another book that he has on the horizon, and that one's called Dinky and Duke's Morning at the Farm. I love these names, man. These titles are incredible. Check it out, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, as well as his personal site, once again, markmullens.godaddysites.com. And I do want to take this opportunity and quickly point out that Mark was brought to our network, People of Distinction, by one of the best publishers in the business, CITI of Books. So if you or anyone you know out there have written a book and you are looking for a publishing company to help you move it, contact CITI of Books. Okay, they're one of the best in the business to do it, and they specialize in taking your literary creation to the next level. Find out more information on them through cityofbooks.com and see what they can do for you today. And listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Mark here on the line. So without further ado, let's bring him here with us. Mark, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest, man. How you doing today?
Hi, Benji. I am absolutely doing great, and thank you so much for inviting me here today. Really feel honored.
Absolutely. Listen, the pleasure is all ours, and, you know, I come from a very big family, Mark, so this is something that really I had a particular fondness for, right? When I was doing research on it, it was nostalgic in a way because it brought me back to all of the times that I was raised, and I have a lot of older brothers, and I was changing diapers very early on and babysitting very early on. So when it comes to reading fun bedtime stories, I'm right there. I remember those experiences myself, but also as someone as a parent himself, I understand what you're saying here. And that nostalgia is real, and it is a beautiful thing, and those moments go by too fast. So I'm here for it. I'm picking up what you're putting down, Mark. I love it. It is truly a pleasure to have you here with us. Before we go into the book, let's start off by learning a little bit more about yourself. Mark, tell us a little bit more about your background.
Well, Benji, I guess I'm a little bit of a complex person, so to speak. I've got quite a long history here, but I was raised in West Virginia and on a small farm, and that's where I got exposed to different animals and things growing up. And I was kind of like the character in the book. I always had my dog by my side and went about my day, and our closest neighbors were about 2 miles away, so we never really, I didn't have the opportunity to play with a lot of other children whenever I was younger, until I got up into school and got old enough that we could make those journeys, on our bicycles and things like that. But I got out of school, and at 19 I got married, and I've been married ever since. So I've had a long history with my wonderful high school sweetheart, and we look forward to having many, many more years together. I went into the military whenever I was 20 years old and stayed there for 8 years. And when I got out of the military, I went into working on heavy equipment as a mechanic, and at the same time, I'm also a musician, so I play music, and I started my own business having a band that I toured with regionally, and I started my own entertainment consultant agency that I kept going for many, many years. And I did that, and I got out of that whole business somewhere around the beginning of 2000. And I decided, it was time for me to really turn my life around and dedicate it more towards, God and what gifts I have and what I can share with people. And began writing music and as a Christian music writer and recording. And so I've done that ever since, as well as what I'm doing here. But about 7 years ago, I decided, I want to write a book, and a children's book. And it came from what you had said earlier, is from spending time with my grandchildren, actually. And they were always so creative. And we were just telling stories one night before bedtime. And they, like children normally do, they just go crazy and say all kinds of crazy things and come up with silly ideas. And that's how this whole idea spawned for me to write this particular book, The Sound of Animals. It was off of those ideas that my grandsons gave me, because they were having so much fun with it. I thought, this is a really good idea, and I think it would be good for other parents and caregivers, grandparents to share with children. It's just hoping they would enjoy it as well. That is pretty much me. I'm a little bit of a jack of all trades on things, and that's what I've been doing.
That's fantastic. Well, first and foremost, Mark, listen, we're going to have to invite you back onto the network, okay? Because that background is wonderfully eclectic. And I'm sure you have stories for days, man, from the band, from so much happening here. I do want to quickly point out, thank you very much for your service. A thank you never seems like it's enough, but it's all I have to offer. So thank you very much, Mark. And congratulations on what sounds like a fantastic and a beautiful marriage and a wonderful family that you've surrounded yourself with. Nothing but continued success to you and all of your loved ones. And without further ado, Mark, The Sound of Animals, tell us a little bit more about the book.
Well, as we had stated earlier there, the book, it kind of involves a couple of things. One, my experiences as a child, which I related to my grandchildren, and then what they input into the idea with their stories that they come up with, because we like to sit around and come up with stories. And my oldest grandson, whose name happens to be Austin, who I used in the book, he was the one that really just took that ball and ran with it. He came up with the idea about, the duck didn't sound like the duck, and the sheep didn't sound like the sheep, and the way they laughed and made fun with this idea is what happened, and how the book idea really came out. So the book, involves the little boy named Austin who wakes up one day and goes out about his business as he normally does, and finds out that all of the animals on his farm, they don't sound like they should. They're not making the right sounds. Everything is mixed up. And so he's very confused about it, and he just decides, he needs to investigate this and see if every single animal is doing this. So he makes his rounds to all the different animals, and the book encourages the reader to make the sounds of the animal too. It asks those questions. What sound do you think the duck makes, or what sound do you think the horse makes? Mm-hmm. And so as you get through the book and go all the way through all these different things and find out that everything is mixed up, he sits down and he decides, I need to think about this really a lot and come up with an idea. So he falls asleep underneath a tree, and he wakes up in his bed the next morning, only to find out it had all been a dream, because when he goes outside, the dog comes up and he's barking just like he's supposed to. And they start out looking at and visiting all the different animals, and everything's back in order. So at that point, he really just sits down and he reflects on it and decides that people and animals, both alike, are complex. And there's a lot that goes on. And, it's not by any chance that they're like that, but they had to have been created. So only God, the Creator, can have thought of that intricate detail, that makes everyone who they are. So he's more than willing to leave all of that up to God because it's just too much for him. So that's how the story goes, and that's the message that I'm trying to get across.
Mark, let's go back to inspiration for a second, because you talked to us about where this book came from, but I want to go a little deeper than that when it comes to writing. Because, listen, your background is in the military and also as a musician. So where does creative writing fit to all of this, Mark? Where did that inspiration to become an author come from?
Well, I think that it actually started pretty young, because whenever I was about 12 years old, I used to love to write short stories. They were tall tales about monsters and things like that, like a 12-year-old boy probably would be thinking about. So I always wanted to write, short stories like that and put something together. But, as life does typically with everyone, it starts taking control, and it's hard to find time. And then before you know it, you're married. Before you know it, you have children. Yeah. And there's just no time for those kind of things. And you have a career that you're trying to juggle. And, I was trying to be, successful with my businesses and my entertainment that I was doing. And so it kind of took second chair. And as I got older, and I got more focused, and my children grew up and left home, and they had children, I was able to sit down and just focus myself a little bit more, and this is where I went. But, I'm hoping that maybe those short stories will come out as well, too, and I get a chance to maybe put some of that together.
People, again, we're here on the line with Mark A. Mullens. We're discussing his book, The Sound of Animals, available for purchase through Amazon, barnesandnoble.com. But make sure you check out his personal site, markmullens.godaddysites.com. Mark, as we close out of this fantastic book, 'cause I do want to quickly go into your next narrative, what would you say was a highlight for you during this process? I mean, I know working with your grandchildren, right? And that experience must have been amazing, right? In something that was so pure. How could you not? But talk to us about this entire process and something that you would deem to be a highlight or something that surprised you.
Well, really, there was a lot of things that surprised me along the way. When you first decide to take on a project like this, you typically feel like you have it under control. You feel like you know what needs to be done. And just like anything else in life, you quickly realize that you probably don't have a clue like you thought that you did. And that's exactly what happened to me with writing this book. I thought, hey, I'll put the story together, I'll get the illustrations together. And I also like to do art. So I wanted to do the artwork myself and everything, but I quickly realized that, in today's world, it's a little different than it was whenever I was younger, and I used to draw, and I started drawing all of these different illustrations for the book, but then transferring them over to digital media, they just didn't have the vibrance and the color and everything. So rather than me having to go back and learn how to use that software to do that and draw, because I'm more of a conventional artist. I like to sit and draw with the pencils and everything like that. But doing it digitally it's a different process. It's still drawing, but it's done differently. And so I found a good artist to work with and did my illustrations, and we worked together on that. But so that was a surprise to me, that how actually complex and difficult it can be to put that together. It's not easy by no task. And so that was a surprise, but got through it. The other thing is just like what you said, sharing that moment, this creativity with my grandchildren, having them be a part of what has been developed out of this process, to me is great, because this is forever, and it's something we got to share while they were small, and they were a very big part of it.
Absolutely.
And so that's been an absolutely wonderful thing too, and a blessing.
And people, as I mentioned before, The Sound of Animals is just the beginning, okay? Because there is much more on the horizon. Now, the first book, or the next book, actually, that we're going to discuss is called Dinky and Duke's Morning at the Farm. Now, know that this is going to be a series, okay? So it's the first book in the series, set to be released very, very shortly. Mark, talk to us about that title, please, and give us a brief synopsis of what it entails.
Well, Dinky and Duke is actually a donkey and a duck, and they're best friends. And the whole idea behind this series is going to be what their adventures together are. And it's really cute because, when they go around and travel and do things, Duke rides on Dinky's back, and they're just best buddies, and they share everything. The first book in the series that I've already completed, and it's in the process of right now. So everything is right there. You'll be able to get that as well through Amazon and through my website as well, and at CITI of Books. The idea behind this one is kind of interactive, a lot like The Sound of Animals is, a little different. They are going around and talking to all the different farm animals and getting to know them. This is how they get introduced in this first series to all of the different animals and where they live and the things that they do throughout their first day together. The whole idea behind this book too, at the end of the book, the message is, they realize that they are taken care of, they're provided for, and they like to thank God for that. And so that's always the message I like to convey with my books, that all of them will do that, we are created, and we have a wonderful, wonderful Father in heaven that takes care of us and watches over us, even if we don't feel that way sometimes. Mm-hmm. But we always end up realizing that at some point. And so that's the idea with this book as well. And it has a fun adventure with them, learning different things and getting to talk to the other animals. And of course, there'll be plenty of opportunity to make all kinds of animal sounds and stuff too, as well as a few different things, but not necessarily animals from the farm, but insects and birds and such. And I would like to say one thing to anyone who would take the time to get the book and share it with their children, is take that time and hold it dearly and precious, because like you mentioned earlier, before you know it, they're grown up, and we're holding them on our arm one day, and then we're giving them the keys of the car the next. So it happens fast.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. I love it. It's just such a wholesome, pure, fun book to embark upon with your children. People, you know what you have to do. Listen, I said it before. I'm going to say it again. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Mark Mullens, GoDaddySites.com are where you have to go. The Sound of Animals was the main book that we discussed, but make sure you go ahead and pick up Dinky and Duke's Morning at the Farm and all of the other books that come out afterwards, because I'm hoping it just continues. Mark, what you're embarking upon is amazing. And listen, I think given the current climate and where we are in the world today, to just have something that, again, as I mentioned, is wholesome, pure, and just something that is a genuine experience to embark upon with your children. As crazy as it sounds, given today's current climate, listen, that's rare, right? And I love what you're doing here. I think that this is an amazing journey for all of our listeners here. So people, you know what you have to do. Head on over there, pick up your book. This is a wonderful journey to embark upon with your children, but it's a fantastic gift to get for someone else so that they can embark upon it with theirs. Head on over there today, pick up your copies. Mark, this has been an absolute pleasure. Such an honor. Thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Thank you very much for having me today, Benji. I really do appreciate it.